Surprise Comics.
We have some amazing giveaways this month. If you subscribe to the channel, comment on this video, and like this video, you're entered to win Invincible Iron Man #7, the third print, first cameo appearance of Riri Williams. And if you head over to brycecomics.com and sign up for the newsletter, you're entered to win a free slab each and every month. This month is Doctor Doom #1, the 1 in 50 Adam Kubert variant in a 9.8. And don't forget to follow me over on Whatnot. I go live every single week with $1 starts, amazing deals on awesome keys, giveaways every single show, so link down in the description to get $10 towards your first purchase. And lastly, follow me on Instagram for trade deals, for grails, fresh content, all kinds of cool stuff happening over on Instagram, including live sales, which was the inspiration for this video. Is last week I did a live sale, and I found it very interesting about the types of books that were selling and the trends that I'm seeing overall in the comic book market. So at first I thought I would call this video 5 recession-proof books, and then I thought, well, no, I can't really do that because no book is actually recession-proof as far as the value goes. I mean, we're seeing across the board, prices are coming down on comic books with very few exceptions. There are a handful of exceptions of books that are continuing to make record-breaking sales, but they are far and few in between. And so last week I had a live sale on Instagram, and I had actually some of the books that you see behind me were actually available for sale. Some of them did sell. They're on payment plans. And I put them up at incredible prices, like way below FMV. And, in some cases, they still didn't sell. And books like that aren't going to make it onto this list. For example, Fantastic Four #45, I had that at a crazy, incredible deal, and it still didn't sell. And so that book didn't make it onto this list. However, most of the books that are on this list were at the sale and did sell like instantly, immediately, with multiple offers because it was just a little bit below FMV. And so that was the inspiration for this video. I think all of the books that are on this list, if you put them up for sale at anywhere close to FMV or even just a little bit below, I think they will sell every single time. And so while they're not recession proof, there is a high liquidity to all of the books that are on this list. As a seller in a bear market, that's becoming one of the most desirable books for me to have, is books that are highly liquid, highly sought after. Whereas before, with the bull market, everything going crazy, going up in price, it didn't really matter how significant the key was. If you had it at a decent price, it was going to sell. And now it's becoming way more scaled back, and people are really honing in and being picky about the keys that they choose to pick up. And so liquidity is a very important thing to consider when you're making your personal collection, depending on your collecting goals. If you're someone who is just going to collect books and never sell books, and your kids can get rid of them when you do pass away, and that's their problem, then you probably don't even really need to worry about liquidity. But for most of us, we have things that come up in our lives, or our collecting goals changes directions, and so liquidity should be something that we really, really consider. Because if you have an incredibly cool book that's like a $3,000 book, say it's like an obscure Golden Age book that just really, really speaks to you, by all means, collect what you love. But what I'm seeing, and what's really important to me, is to collect things that I love that are also highly liquid, because when it does come time to sell, I want to be able to sell it quickly. And even though if you have that $3,000 book that's really, really cool, finding the right buyer can be really difficult. Case in point is that Fantastic Four 45, even though it was really well priced, way below FMV, there's a liquidity issue. Like, it's just a numbers thing. Say there's 100 people in the room. Well, what are the chances that of those 100 people at that live sale, they actually have the $1,500 to shell out for that Fantastic Four #45? Like, it's actually kind of a low likelihood. But the books that are on this list, almost every single sale, if you have them at even close to a reasonable price, there's going to be someone in that room that's willing to shell it out at that time. So it's really got me thinking about my personal collection, about the liquidity of comic books, and really trying to tie in the two things of something that really speaks to me, that I really love, that is also highly liquid. Amazing Spider-Man number 252. Here we can see in the 9.8. Take a look at this graph here, and you take a look at this dark blue line here in the center. Compared to some other stuff going on in the market right now, this is a pretty strong looking graph. Yes, we're seeing a little bit of a correction, but after this huge run up, its ability to maintain these numbers is remarkable. And this is just one of those books that, you know, all of these collectors coming back into the hobby after a long hiatus, or new collectors here for the first time, when they see this book, they want it. I mean, it has that classic cover, it has key significance. It is a book that will always be in super high demand. And this is an interesting one when you look at what's available on eBay. In years past, it used to be that the newsstand edition was way more rare to find on eBay, but I've seen this flip-flop in recent weeks and months. If you look right now what's available direct, and we're talking about the 9.8s only for this because that's where the big difference in price for newsstand really matters, is in that top grade of 9.8. So we have direct edition, newsstand, direct. This is a weird one where somebody cracked it out of the case. Newsstand, direct, newsstand. So I'm seeing more newsstands available at this time than direct editions, which is a new phenomenon. If you look down here, the newsstand edition does demand a premium in price. It's about $300 more currently at the moment. And if you look at numbers sold for 2022, there was 28 newsstands sold compared to 25 direct editions. 2021, there were 66 newsstands sold compared to 64 direct editions sold. So actually, more newsstands have sold. And if you look at 2020, there was way less, but I think that's just because GPA wasn't actually tracking them correctly. Because if you look here, this is supposed to be the direct editions, and you look here at this sale, and we go and find it is actually a newsstand. So in 2020, they were lumping in newsstands and directs together, so those numbers are messed up. This is a really important point to keep in mind with GPA and with comic price guides in general, is there is nuance, there is stuff that gets missed with these, you know, computer learning programs. You have to really know what you're doing and critically evaluate the information. So this book, it seems to have an equal number of sales in newsstand and direct. However, the newsstand has consistently, over time, demanded a premium, and for that reason, I would recommend picking up a newsstand if you can get it for close to or only a few $100s more. It seems to demand a premium in the aftermarket. And if we look at the CGC census for ASM 252, there's a lot of copies on the census. There's 17,000 total copies, 1,700 9.8s. Compare that to the Canadian price variant, you have 574 total copies, only 46 9.8s. So the Canadian price variant demands a huge premium. It is way more rare, and that is recognized by the community in the prices. But even with these high numbers on the census, this is just one of those books that is in such high demand. I think it's a safe book to buy and a great book to have in your collection. When it does come time to sell, you won't have any problem selling it. Next up, we have Incredible Hulk number 340, and here this is interesting because this book is about the same price as ASM 252, but it is more rare. When you look at the census, there's only 1,100 9.8s compared to ASM 252, only 9,420 total copies compared to 17,000. So it's way more rare of a book, but it's about the same price. It's also not really a key, it's just that classic cover. So that it all kind of makes sense when you look at the whole picture. But if we look at the 9.8, this book is doing incredibly well. Even in this times, the last sale was 1,725. And if we look at the numbers here, I mean, it is just, it's actually gone up since March. We saw a dip in March and April, and here in July, we're heading back up into these record high numbers. So this is a book that is performing incredibly well despite the bear market, and it is a book that will always be super desirable. It's one that the newsstand edition is an absolute ghost. This book is from 1988, whereas 252 is from 1984. Big difference in the availability of newsstand versus directs in those 2 years. This book has always hovered around $3,500 to $4,000 for the newsstand, and just a couple sales on record for the newsstand edition. Amazing Spider-Man number 300. The 9.8, the most recent sale was $47.50. We've had 45 9.8 sales so far this year in 2022, which is a high number of sales. And it's impressive, that this book can maintain these numbers with so many sales month after month after month. And it has definitely seen a correction. We were closer to the $6,000 mark earlier this year in January, and now we've seen the lowest in June and July of 4,500, 4,750. This book may continue to correct a little bit, but the fact that it has such high volume of sales is a good sign to me and shows strength to me. I think this is an excellent book to have in your personal collection because it's always going to be desirable. You won't have a hard time selling it when it does come time to sell. And there may be better opportunities to buy in later this year over the next 6 months to a year. And I think it's a great book to have in your collection. And this is one that's kind of scary when you look at the census. I mean, we have 29,794 total copies of ASM 300 on the census. But, the majority of those are between 9.6 and 8.5. That's the vast majority of copies graded. So it is a tough book to get in 9.8, comparatively speaking to how many are on the census. There's 1,500 9.8. So there's definitely a lot of these out there, but in comparison to the demand, it has caused this book to be a $4,000 or $5,000 book consistently. Batman 423. This book is doing surprisingly well. The last sale was $3,000, but that was in June. We haven't had any sales so far this year in July. If one comes to auction, it'll be really interesting to see what it actually sells for. There's way less volume of this being sold. There's only 11 copies sold so far this year. And this is one that when you look at the census, it is truly baffling what's going on with the prices. The 9.8 has 259 copies, 2,700 total copies on the census. So this is the most rare of all the books that we're talking about in this video, which bodes really well for this book and the collectability of this book long term. But when you look at the Canadian price variant, there isn't a single 9.8, 33 total copies, an absolute ghost for the Canadian price variant. And you look at the second print, I had to just double take on this. Is this correct? Only 16 total 9.8s for the second print and only 46 total 9.8s for the third print. I mean, that's baffling. That is drastically more rare than the 259 for the first prints. And this is one of those books that the first print demands a huge premium over the second and the third prints. And as soon as I wrap my head around this, I'll do a video about it, about what makes a subsequent print more valuable, because we see it all the time now with modern books where a second or third print, if it's a ghost of a book that only has, a few hundred or 1,000 copies even printed, the second or the third print demands a huge premium over the first print. But this is the exact opposite. The first print has way more copies, and it's triple, in some cases 6 times more expensive. I mean, $3,000 for a 9.8 first print. And if we look down at the third print, the last sale was $425. That's 6 times more expensive, and it's way more rare. So this is just one of those things that is just totally baffling to me. I'm not sure what is behind this. What is driving these? Is it awareness of the scarcity? Is it the era of collector that's after this book? I don't know. And as soon as I get to the bottom of it, I will make a video about it. Ultimate Fallout 4, and here's the graph for the 9.8, and if you look at that dark blue line, that's the average. And if you look at this, this is incredibly impressive for a modern book that is as plentiful with as many copies as there is of this book. The fact that it's still selling for $2,700 just speaks to the strength of this character, the strength of this book. I think there may be better opportunities to get in on this book in the future, the next 6 months or a year, but it's a great book to have in your collection because when it does come time to sell, there's always going to be a huge demand for it. 137 total copies sold so far this year, which is a huge number for a modern book to be able to maintain these kind of prices. 323 total copies sold last year, 521 total copies sold in 2020. I mean, this is a book that changes hands a huge number of times every single day. It seems like there's sales of this book, even in the 9.8. So It's definitely a book that's showing incredible strength and has a lot of potential in the future, but it's important to time your buy-in. If you think about, stuff that's going on in the news, we're not hearing a whole lot about it right now. We're seeing a bear market. We're seeing prices come down across the board. It might be a good time to hold out and pick one up, and then, expect another spike in sales when we get announcements and trailers and movies, and then expect, another dip in prices after that. So timing your buy-in on this one is incredibly important, but I think it's a must-have for any modern collector. There you have it, guys. 5 books that are selling like hotcakes, even in a bear market. Incredibly, incredibly awesome, valuable books to collect. I mean, let's just put those 5 books up on the screen here for a second. I mean, just look at this. Look at this set of books. Look at the artwork. I mean, it's no wonder that these are so highly desirable, so sought after, and such cool books, such a cool feather to have in your cap as a collector if you own these. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, comment on this video, and like this video for your chance to win Invincible Iron Man number 7, the 3rd print, and a 9.8. And head over to brycecomics.com and sign up for the newsletter to get entered to win another free slab each and every month. Follow me on Whatnot for weekly live sales, awesome deals, giveaways every single show, and lastly on Instagram for fresh content, trade deals for grails, stuff like that. Thank you as always for sticking with me all the way to the end of the video, and we'll catch you in the next one. Bye.
Bryce Comics.